Driving earlier, and I was remembering a new law in Missouri that they just recently passed that you can't be on your cell phone, like you're holding your cell phone or texting when you're driving. And I got to thinking about that, and the Lord started teaching me about, the Old Testament. And so, like, in the Old Testament, there was, the old law. We were under the old law before Jesus came. And so we had to obey all of those laws. Well, we didn't have the Holy Spirit back then to be able to empower us to obey them. We had to rely on our own strength to do them. And so when Jesus came, like, he fulfilled the law. So, like, we're under grace now. And so I can just picture, Pharisees and Sadducees and people of that day that were living before Jesus came in the flesh, of how they tried, in their own strength to obey the law. And when Jesus came, he's like, I give you a new commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. They probably had to remind themselves of that often to remember what Jesus said, like he gave a new law, because they were so set in the old law and how to think, and so their thinking and everything was wired that way. So when Jesus came, he gives this new commandment to love one another as I have loved you. Just as in real life now, when the laws are passed, like, don't text and drive or call and hold your phone whenever you're calling, don't do that. It takes time for that new law to literally just be carried out in your mind, like, don't do that. Sometimes you forget, and sometimes you find yourself in that, just not doing that, and you're going back to old ways and the old way of thinking. And so the more time goes on, you start to realize, oh yeah, that's a new law, you accept it and you just walk on, and the old way of thinking, it ends up leaving eventually, but it takes time. It's a process. So when Jesus went to the Father, he had finished the work, the cross, everything's finished. So when he went to the Father, he sent the Holy Spirit. And when he did that, the Spirit leads and guides us into all truth. And so when the Holy Spirit came inside of us, like, the laws of God is already in us. So for us, being born in this day, it's easier for us to accept the new law, which we're under grace, and Jesus made that possible. So grace empowers us to follow Jesus. It's not based on our works or our efforts, like the Old Testament, like the people of that day, it was based on their flesh, basically trying to carry out this, which was impossible to do that. We needed the Holy Spirit. Like, the Holy Spirit enables us and equips us to be able to carry out the laws of God. They're written inside of our hearts and our minds. And, so it's really neat how God changes our belief system to be from his perspective and the way he sees things. And the more we are spending time with him and the more we're in his word, he reveals himself to us. And we start to realize, like, it all goes right back to Jesus Christ. He's the solution for everything. He's the one that changes our perspective to be like his and not our own and our old way of thinking. He renews our minds according to his word. So I just encourage you to just seek the Lord with all your heart. He loves you, and he even gives you the grace to seek him and to believe and to just accept what he has to say is final. It's awesome who he is.